Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and today we're going to be discussing an event that hasn't been seen for at least a year now, and it's an on-again, off-again event, and for about 10 years it was a pay-per-view, 10 years consecutively. I'm talking about the King of the Ring. King of the Ring, held every June between 1993 and 2002, was an annual pay-per-view. Now, of course, it started back in 1985, where Don Morocco, I believe, won that tournament. Harley Race won it the next year, and thus becoming King Harley Race. Anyways, those were non-televised events. They were held at house shows in various cities, and started in 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, and then they had it again. Didn't have it in 90, but 91 they did, and of course not in 92, but then 93 finally held the first one, all the way to 2002. So, King of the Ring was a stepping stone, much like the Royal Rumble. You know, you win the Royal Rumble, you go to WrestleMania. King of the Ring had a similar concept in that it elevated you to the next level. Now, it wasn't until the very last pay-per-view in 2002, the winner of the King of the Ring got to receive a world title match at SummerSlam. That was the case with Brock Lesnar when he won in 2002. I went to face The Rock, and I was there at Nassau Coliseum when he won the belt that night for the first time in his career. Rock put Brock over. But what it did initially was to elevate the superstar to the next level, eventually them getting the chance to become champion somewhere down the line. Now, that didn't work out for every single winner. Let's keep that in mind now. But two of my favorite King of the Ring events happen to be the first pay-per-view one in Dayton, Ohio in 1993, and the 2000 edition from Boston, Massachusetts. Bret Hart won the first pay-per-view King of the Ring in 1993, and he had some of the best three matches from any one guy on a single card. In the first round, he defeated Razor Ramon in a classic bout. Then he defeated Mr. Perfect in the semifinals, which was a great match, but still not quite on the level of SummerSlam 91 for the Intercontinental title, as I talked about in a previous video. And then finally, in the finals, he faces off and defeats Bam Bam Bigelow to become 1993 King of the Ring. So Bret Hart had his work cut out for him. And boy, if anybody deserved to wrestle 3 times in one night, it's Bret. And that was a great tournament in of itself because you had a lot of great star power. You had a lot of great star power. You had Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, Bam Bam Bigelow, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Lex Luger was the narcissist at the time, Tatanka. And then you had Mr. Hughes. I don't know how Mr. Hughes exactly got in that mix. He's not all that great. But he was out in the first round, so that's okay. Tatanka and Lex Luger battled to a draw, I believe, which led Bam Bam Bigelow to draw a bye. Now, they don't have this anymore in tournaments. What it means to draw a bye in a tournament means that you don't have any competition in whatever round we are in. So you get a free pass, basically. That's what a bye is. So Bam Bam Bigelow drew a bye because of Narcissist and Tatanka battling to a draw in their last bout. I don't know if it was a double countout, double disqualification, something or other. No contest. So that's one King of the Ring I liked. And 2000 actually had the most competitors. Now, they always kept the King of the Ring matches on the pay-per-view to 8 superstars. Like, those are the Elite 8 that would compete at the pay-per-view. They'd often have first-round matches on Raw or Superstars, and then later years on SmackDown, Heat. Qualifying matches, I should say. So here they had, the 2000 edition had 32 competitors vying for the title of King of the Ring. Initially, you'd already have 16, and you'd have the qualifying matches on, typically how it would work when you had 16 guys, you'd have the qualifying matches on TV, free TV. Then you'd have, on the pay-per-view, you'd have the first round, which I guess would be the quarterfinals. The dynamics and wording is so different every year that it throws me off. Then, of course, the semifinals and then the finals. So it's basic bracketology. Just look at the brackets and you'll see. And you can look this up on Wikipedia under King of the Ring. So let's get back to 2000. You had 32 competitors, so you had qualifying matches. Then you had an entire first round. And then the first round was whittled down to what they called the quarterfinals, which is the Elite 8. Then, of course, you had the semifinals, and then you had the finals. Kurt Angle won that King of the Ring, and I was a big Kurt Angle fan from the moment he debuted in November of 1999. let's see, who were the Elite Eight in that King of the Ring? You had Kurt Angle, the winner. You had Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Rikishi, Eddie Guerrero, Val Venus, and then the last two weren't so great, Crash Holly and Bull Buchanan. So what amazes me is Crash Holly made it as far as he did, while guys like Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit were out right from the get-go. And this is just the pay-per-view. We're not talking about the qualifying and matches or the first-round matches on Raw and SmackDown at the time. But, yeah, Angle was on the rise, so no question, without a doubt, he had to win this tournament. He faced off against Chris Jericho in the quarterfinals. We're just talking about the pay-per-view itself. In the quarterfinals, he defeated Chris Jericho, and that match is notorious for Stephanie McMahon interfering. She's carrying her women's title, and she's in this turquoise dress. Jericho, I guess she wanted to cost him the match because of something he said to her earlier in the night or previous week on TV. And he ends up locking lips with her, ends up French kissing her right on the ring apron as she's distracting the referee. That was enough of a distraction for Jericho to lose that, what's the name of it? The quarterfinal match. I was going to say first round, but it would have been wrong. That was enough for Jericho to lose the quarterfinal match there. Then Kurt Angle takes on Crash Holly in less than 3 minutes. That's kind of easy pickings for Angle. Then it gets a little tougher as he has to face Rikishi in the finals. Rikishi had the roughest night. Coming off the heels of the previous Thursday on SmackDown, defeating Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental Championship, he had to face Benoit in the first round, which he beat him, I think, by disqualification. Benoit laid on the crossface. So Rikishi is now entering the semifinals injured. He takes on Val Venus, and Val Venus does a number on him. Val was starting to shed off the porn star gimmick and becoming more aggressive, which made him more bland when he joined forces with TNA and Trish Stratus. He had Trish Stratus by his side, but that wasn't much help for Val. Val's gimmick was great in 98 and 99, but by 2000 it started to lose its steam. It probably run its course, same with Godfather. So Val Venus, wearing black and white or whatever at the time, and he cut his hair, that really killed the gimmick for me, I thought. So he beat up Rikishi and just became this really uber-aggressive heel. And then in the finals, then Rikishi moves on to ultimately succumb to Kurt Angle. And by this point, he's got his bicep taped up, his knees all taped up, and he's battered and bruised, has a black eye. Rikishi, I remember buying the 2-pack action figure. These were like pay-per-view winners. The Titantron live set, Angle and Rikishi. And my Rikishi looked all beat up right from the get-go, and Angle looks as happy with that head scan. Hey, going like that. Those head scans were so ridiculous back then. But be that as it may. So those are my favorite King of the Rings. In later years, there was a time period actually between 96, 97, 98. And they didn't do this in 99, but between those 3 years, 96 to 98, they only had half the tournament on the show. Only the semifinals, which are only 2 matches, because semifinals is only 4 people, and then, of course, the finals. So those are the years Austin won in 96, Hunter Hearst Helmsley won in 97, then Ken Shamrock in 98. The first 2 obviously went on to become bigger stars, but Shamrock, nothing ever materialized. 99, they had the whole tournament on the show, which was won by Mr. Ass, Billy Gunn. So I didn't like that they did that because they wanted to leave, I think they wanted to, one of 2 things could have happened, which led to that decision. I think they wanted to leave room for other preliminary matches. There were some championship bouts or other feuds other scores that needed to be settled, other feuds that needed to culminate. So maybe they were using King of the Ring for that. Or it could be that the event had just lost steam, and I think that's probably what happened in 2002. And that was another event. 2001 and 2002, they only had half the tournament on the show, semifinals and finals. So I think the event lost its steam, and general fan interest was starting to wane. So I think by that point they decided, okay, we're going to do away with this pay-per-view in a few years. And the next year in 2003 was Bad Blood. Started the whole Raw SmackDown dynamic. So, I think that's the reason why they only put part of the tournament on the show. I just thought it killed it for me, and I was just a kid watching this. King of the Ring 2001 is a special one because my brother and I were actually there in attendance in East Rutherford, New Jersey, at what was known as the Continental Airlines Arena, formerly the Meadowlands. And it later became the Izod Center, and I think it's something else now, and it's not far from MetLife Stadium. So East Rutherford, New Jersey, it was worth the drive. We got a little lost on the way, but hell, that's bound to happen. And the best match that night wasn't even any of the tournament matches. Edge won the tournament. I wanted Angle to win 2 in a row. Angle wrestled 3 times. He beat Christian in the semifinals, lost to Edge in the finals, and then had this epic match against Shane McMahon. Oh my God, that was match of the night for me. Angle and Shane. Shane was promoting his WCW. Excuse me. Shane was promoting all his WCW propaganda during Kurt Angle's Olympics ceremony, where the night after Judgment Day '01, Angle was standing on a pedestal like they have at the Olympics, and confetti was coming down. He was reveling in the moment here, basking in the glory. Shane's music hit. Here comes the money! And then he comes out and talks about WCW and wants to recruit Kurt Angle, and Angle gives him an Angle Slam off the podium, or whatever that stand is called. Forgive me for wrong verbiage. So that leads to this intense street fight match we get there. So Shane actually helps Angle from the semifinals to advance to the finals, but then he betrays him in his match against Edge in the finals. So he didn't do any good for Christian, but did good for Edge. So I think he wanted to set up Kurt and piss him off, so to speak. So he's already angry for that third ladder match there, which ladder, L-A-T-T-E-R, I'm not talking about ladder with a D. The ladder match for Kurt Angle that particular evening. So the street fight's intense, anything you'd expect. This is actually Shane McMahon's best match, and Shane is not the trained professional wrestler by any stretch of the imagination, but he knows how to work these gimmick matches so well. The worst spot for Shane, because he's the one that actually suffered, was when they were going to the front of the stage. It was electric chair stage. There was this kind of theme of electrocution, and kind of had a Judgment Day-ish theme, if you ask me. You know, kind of end of the line here, dead end. So, excuse me. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so there was this entranceway with fiberglass underneath the Titantron. Fiberglass had KOR in it. It was neatly, gaily decorated there, and Kurt decides to throw Shane into the glass, which was all fine and dandy because we've seen spots like that before. The only problem is the glass wouldn't break. So he goes to give Shane a belly-to-belly suplex, and Shane lands headfirst on the concrete. Dunk! Oh my God, you can actually hear the thud of Shane McMahon's head hitting the concrete. And I'll never forget Kurt on Confidential in a video package talking about this match. He said, I thought Shane might have been knocked out, which of course he was. I think they tried it at least twice, and Shane just landed, boom, right on the concrete, head first. You could suffer major brain damage from that, obviously. That goes without saying. But watching that, and it's just shocking. You know, there's no other way to stress that. Finally, on the third attempt, he breaks the glass, and Shane lands on his back, which what he was supposed to do in the first place. So a little botch there, but these things are bound to happen in matches like this. And then he does another spot again, and Shane hits his head yet again inside the structure. Finally breaks the glass again. I guess they didn't realize how thick that fiberglass was. It wasn't easy breakaway glass, not the easy breakaway kind like Stone Cold would come out to, where it says Austin 316 when he goes whoosh, cling. My lame attempt at making a sound effect of breaking glass. So anyways, they finish off that match, and I remember Kurt putting Shane on one of those rolling carts where they carry all the heavy electrical equipment. And he pushes him on there, and Shane's very limp, just kind of like this. He brings him into the ring. He sets him up for an angle slam, I believe, off the top rope, and Kurt is standing on like a little baseboard, which is propped up against the ropes. He does the angle slam, and 1, 2, 3, that's it. Great match. Go back and watch it. King of the Ring 2001, Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon. That's not a tournament match, but that match really did wonders for me as a kid, and, you know, the excitement, and I appreciate the work that Shane and Kurt both put in, especially the risk taken by Shane. He put himself on the line for us fans. Excuse me. He put himself on the line for us fans, so we have to respect Shane McMahon for doing this. Say what you will about him, but you got to respect that. So, another thing memorable about that night was Chris Benoit's neck injury, which put him out for a whole year. It was a triple threat match for the WWE title. Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Chris Jericho defeated Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. Jericho and Benoit, recent tag team champions, recent allies. And Benoit, I forget the exact spot. I think he was doing like a back suplex Jericho off the top rope, I believe, and he heard something snap in the back of his spinal column, or so he said. and that was enough to necessitate surgery from Dr. Lloyd Youngblood. That was the neck surgeon for Chris Benoit. A lot of the guys used Dr. James Andrews down in Birmingham, Alabama. He's main surgeon doctor for WWE superstars. So, anyways, fun night in New Jersey, and haven't been back to that arena since, I don't believe. So, anyways, another King of the Ring that comes to mind, and this is probably the worst one. One of the worst pay-per-views. One of my least favorite pay-per-views of all time is the 1995 King of the Ring, live from the Core State Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I believe that became the first Union Center, which later became the Wachovia Center, which is now the Wells Fargo Arena. All these banks buying out these arenas. Core State Spectrum. Core State was a bank too. I don't think that's around anymore. This is 30 years ago now. Mabel won the tournament of all people. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Nelson Frazier, and I was sad to hear he passed away in 2014 of a heart attack, and he was only 43 years old, 44, give or take. Mabel did not deserve to win it that year. You had other... Let's see, who was in that tournament? Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. Those would have been the top two choices for me. The rest of it wasn't so good. You had Mabel. Originally Razor Ramon, but then he got injured, so Savio Vega had to replace him, and Savio was brand spanking new. He was already on the roster as Quang, but then he later became himself, just changed it to being more of a gimmick, leaning towards his real self than a masked ninja. So you had Savio Vega, he had the Roadie, Bob Holly, Yokozuna, that would have been another great choice, Yokozuna. And then the last choice, God, who was... I'm just trying to think. Give me a second, because you had Savio and Yokozuna, Roadie and Bob Holly, Mabel, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Kama. Kama of the $1 Million Corporation, later Godfather. So Shawn Michaels and Kama battled to a time limit draw, and Shawn should have wrestled more times that night. He could have won King of the Ring. He would have been a great choice. Shawn, Taker, Yokozuna. Those would have been my three choices. Savio Vega actually wrestled 4 times because he had to qualify on the Sunday Night Slam. They used to have that show before the free-for-all took over, and he defeated IRS in a qualifying match. That spot was Razor Ramon's spot. Razor, like I said, got injured. I don't remember the extent of the injury at the time. So Savio defeats IRS to qualify. Then he defeats Yokozuna miraculously, which wasn't an easy feat to do, and Yoko was pushing 568 pounds then. He was getting heavier and heavier. Then he goes on to defeat the Roadie in the semifinals, and then finally succumbs to King Mabel. King Mabel had an easy route. He defeated The Undertaker in his... to qualify, he defeated Adam Bomb at the very first In Your House in Syracuse. He defeated Adam Bomb in the qualifying match. Then he defeated Undertaker in the quarterfinals, first round, whatever you want to call it. And then he drew a bye because of the inconclusive ending to the Shawn Michaels Kama match. Then we get to see Mabel wrestle twice and Savio wrestle for a 4th time in Philly. He finally defeats him in short order. Then Razor Ramon tries to interfere, and he's got his ribs taped up. It might have been a rib injury or something for kayfabe reasons. Then the 1-2-3 Kid also interferes, who wasn't even on the card that night because he was good friends with Razor. So Mabel wins. He squashes everybody. Sir Mo does this long, drawn-out proclamation, but I love the theme music for King of the Ring 95. Go look it up on YouTube. Type in 1995 King of the Ring coronation theme. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Just the regal fanfare type music surrounding it just brings... it's music to my ears. Brings joy to me. So that was the one good redeeming quality of 1995 King of the Ring. I'm not even going to say the Kiss My Foot match between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler, because that was just a gimmick match, not one of Bret's best performances. I'm sure he'd say the same thing himself. But it ended that feud. So King of the Ring in later years had stupid rules, and they didn't respect buys. I can give you a perfect example in 2019. I don't remember, that was the year Baron Corbin won and became King Corbin. I don't remember the exact participants, but Baron Corbin or somebody was out of the tournament. 2 people were out because they got their match ended in either a double disqualification or a double countout. Now, instead of respecting tradition and drawing a bye like they should have, they make it a triple threat match. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Why would you make it a triple threat match? There's no second chances in these tournaments. Once you're out, you're out. That's it. Done. Presto. Oh my god. And then the great thing about last year's event, now Gunther won it, and he's been on a meteoric rise, and then he just lost his world title to Jey Uso at WrestleMania just last month. But it included the women for the first time, so we finally had the Queen of the Ring. Queen of the Ring, I like that, and all the advancements we're doing for women's wrestling, I'm all for it. And Nia Jax was our inaugural Queen of the Ring, and she got a title match against Bayley at last year's SummerSlam for the WWE Women's Championship over on SmackDown. And she won it and lost it to Tiffany Stratton, who cashed in Money in the Bank in January earlier this year. So that's my story here on King of the Ring. If there's any memories anybody wants to share, feel free to leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Maybe we'll see it again in the near future. We're not going to see it next month because we already got Money in the Bank happening. I think Money in the Bank, which leads me to one more point here. Money in the Bank, to me, has now become the kind of the fifth pay-per-view after the Big Four. So you have the Big Four: WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Then King of the Ring used to be there, and they used to call it the Big Five. But then you couldn't call it Big Five when King of the Ring was gone. So I think Money in the Bank's sort of taken that place since its inception in 2010. And you always had 8 participants in those matches, and now they've whittled it down to 6 for whatever reason, for both the men's and women's matches, respectively. So 8 people in the tournament, 8 people in the ladder matches, and it was a similar concept. A guaranteed, well, in some ways, it wasn't exactly a rise up the card, but a guaranteed title shot. And more often than not, people have been successful in cashing in their in on their Money in the Bank contracts. We'll do a whole other video on Money in the Bank another time. But that's what's coming up in June. In fact, it's a week from today, so I hope everybody watches that. I certainly will be. And in July, I think we've got Saturday night's main event. Then August, we have SummerSlam, which is going to be 2 nights. So we're kind of stacked right now as far as PLEs go. Anyways, let me know your thoughts, see what you think. This has been another great edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.